Now to another story that we are following, international concerns over a standoff between Russia and Ukraine. In the past hour, Ukraine's parliament has been voting on implementing martial law. Ukraine accuses Russia of firing on and seizing 3 of its ships near Crimea. Take a look at this video. It was released by Ukraine's interior minister, which claims to show a Russian border ship ramming into a Ukrainian vessel. Now, Russian state media report the ships had entered Russia's waters illegally. Our CNN's Matthew Chance joins us now from Moscow. And Matthew, this certainly is a major escalation, the tension between Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainian parliament, as I mentioned, considering imposing martial law. What could that look like?
Well, first of all, it's a big step, Lynda, imposing martial law, and it's certainly a step that hasn't been taken so far by Ukraine, despite even at the height of the conflict that it was fighting with Russian-backed rebels in the east of the country, where thousands of people were killed. It didn't take this measure. But, you know, it's a sign of just how seriously this situation in the Sea of Azov and in the Kerch Strait, that stretch of water between the Russian mainland and the Crimean Peninsula, that standoff is becoming, that the Ukrainian parliament are debating this now after a recommendation by the Ukrainian president, Petro Poroshenko. What it would mean is a certain curtailment of civil liberties. It would mean that more power would be diverted towards government institutions. The Ukrainian government has said it would be for a limited period of 60 days. One of the concerns that has been expressed is that this is President Poroshenko taking advantage of the military situation for his own political ends, because he's facing an election campaign. It's taking place next year. He's trailing very seriously in the polls, and the idea that this renewed confrontation with Russia could bolster national opinion around him is something that could bolster his support. And so there's a degree of cynicism, I think, when people look at this developing political situation in Ukraine. Nevertheless, the situation is very serious. The Ukrainian Navy says that 6 of its sailors were injured and another couple of dozen of them have been in detention as a result of these confrontations on the Sea of Azov.
Yeah. It is interesting timing nonetheless. We know the UN Security Council has agreed to hold an emergency meeting in about an hour from now to discuss this. What's likely to happen? A Western government's likely to side with Ukraine here, and what could that mean for Russia?
Undoubtedly, Western governments, I mean, the Security Council is divided, but Western governments are bound to side with Ukraine. In fact, there's already been expressions of support from the European Union and from the Western military alliance, NATO, for de-escalation, calling on both sides to de-escalate in this ongoing confrontation. And of course, there's every possibility that if the escalation does not take place, the stage could be set for a ratcheting up of sanctions. I think the only sort of break on that is a sense in which, despite the fact there have been broad-ranging sanctions imposed by the West, by the United States, by its allies in Europe on Russia for its annexation of Crimea back in 2014, for its support of rebels in eastern Ukraine and all the rest of it, that does not seem to have changed Russian policy significantly. It may have curtailed the Russian economy, but it doesn't seem to have acted as a brake on Russia's territorial ambitions in the region. So that may actually hold Western powers back from taking further measures, the fact that it's simply not having the desired impact. But nevertheless, they're going to have to be seen to be doing something, and sanctions is a favoured strategy of achieving that. Lynda.
All right, Matthew Chance, good to have you across this story for us. Thanks so much. We'll speak soon.